Robert V. Racunas, Neighborhood Legal Services, and Mark Schwartz, Regional Housing Legal Services. Robert V. Racunas and Mark Schwartz are the two longest tenured legal aid project directors in the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network. Their combined experience in the legal aid system spans more than 10 decades. Over the course of their careers, both Bob and Mark have been zealous legal advocates, dynamic leaders, significant and influential mentors, and most importantly, friends to many. Robert V. Racunas served Neighborhood Legal Services as Executive Director for 40 years. Bob has dedicated his entire legal career to the organization, starting as an intern in law school in 1969. After graduating from the University of Pittsburgh School of Law in 1971, he was hired as a staff attorney, then promoted to managing attorney, deputy director, and ultimately appointed executive director in 1980.
It's hard to imagine the system without his presence in the future. He was an experienced manager and leader that all of the other executive directors relied upon. As an executive director, you needed to know what to do. You could call Bob, and you could be sure that Bob would have a story to tell you and some advice.
Throughout his career, Bob has been remarkably successful in building bridges between legal services and the private bar through his leadership. His stakeholder engagement with the public and private sectors helped to move neighborhood legal services to the forefront with innovative projects designed to increase access to justice. Among colleagues, Bob has always been respected for his commitment to clients and willingness to advocate for the interests of vulnerable and marginalized people.
Whether it's Bob bringing them in on the board level or conferring with them in important decisions, Bob, I think, has really stood for throughout his career, making sure that clients have that meaningful role. And when I talk about the board involvement of clients, it is another part of what Bob stood out for, which is bringing important leadership to the board of Neighborhood Legal Services.
Bob's commitment to educating the community and getting the community engaged extended beyond bar associations and judges, but also to the corporate community in Western Pennsylvania. If you said Neighborhood Legal Services to any of those members of the community, most, if not all, had been educated about neighborhood by Bob Racunas.
Bob has been instrumental in moving forward legal aid initiatives that benefit advocates throughout the Commonwealth. He has served as president of the Allegheny County Bar Association and on the boards of the Pennsylvania Project Directors Corporation, Pennsylvania Legal Services, now PLAN, Regional Housing Legal Services, and the Pennsylvania IOLTA Board. In addition, Bob was a member of the American Bar Association and served in the House of Delegates. He also served on the Pennsylvania Bar Association's Board of Governors and is a current member of its House of Delegates.
He really is a problem solver. And that's a skill that's hard to learn in some ways. It has to do with your perspective, how you look at the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis and the big challenges that you face from time to time. Bob is able to bring in the resources needed to have the dialogue with others and to bring about solutions when challenging problems arise.
Bob and I served together on the steering committee that led to the loan repayment assistance program that the court approved for the use of Pro Hoc Vice admission fees. It's been a very successful program, a program that's been a source of pride for the IOLTA Board, the Supreme Court, and our legal aid community. Having Bob's leadership on that steering committee was very important.
My fondest memory of Bob actually comes from playing golf in the Neighborhood Legal Services golf outing one summer. For those of you who are old enough to remember, a PBA task force had developed the idea of developing a loan repayment assistance program to support lawyers doing civil legal aid. Unfortunately, there was no funding for it. So Bob and I had spent most of the round talking about where we could find the funding from. And as we were walking up to a green to hit our putts, I looked at Bob and said, "That's it. There's a way to do it. And the following week, we approached Chief Justice Castile and raised the idea with him to fund the loan repayment assistance program to assist the lawyers throughout the state.
Mark Schwartz served as the Executive Director of Regional Housing Legal Services for 40 years and continues to serve as of Counsel. Mark joined as a staff attorney in 1974, only 1 year after the organization was formed. Under Mark's leadership, Regional Housing Legal Services grew from a staff of 3 attorneys to a staff of 23, with 3 offices throughout Pennsylvania.
Mark Schwartz is a brilliant strategist and visionary whose work has changed the world for so many vulnerable people. With his direction and expertise, we built a beautiful new state-of-the-art law office that has helped revitalize an important but impoverished commercial district in North Philadelphia.
He's a venerated expert in housing and community development law in Pennsylvania and nationally, and has been a leading force behind many key policy and systemic changes made on behalf of the disenfranchised. He is the longest-serving member of the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency Board and one of the co-founders and a 2-time past president of the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania. He is also a 2-time past president of the National Council of State Housing Boards.
If you go back 20 years, you would not necessarily see home ownership and mortgage foreclosure issues as a lead issue within legal services. But as we faced various crises in our economy, it became a much more important issue for client-eligible people who were able to afford a home at one time and then met with the challenges of the economy. Pennsylvania ended up with the largest NeighborWorks grant in the nation, and the effect of that funding, as I recall, it was over $2 million, was to be able to provide very meaningful, significant benefits to homeowners who were facing the foreclosure crisis in 07, 08, 09, and to be able to help save homes. It made a real difference, and Mark opened that door.
So when the IOLTA board received the Bank of America money, we had to figure out how to spend it with the restrictions. So the one restriction was community redevelopment legal assistance. And when we were laying the blueprints for how we would spend that money, Mark was the primary person, my primary resource person for learning all about community redevelopment. And I think 90% of my communications for the next 18 months were with Mark. And Mark played a huge role in the development of the program and in the success of the program.
Mark has left an impression on legal aid in Pennsylvania as one of the founding members and, for many years, president of the Pennsylvania Project Directors Corporation. In addition, Mark is a former board member of the Philadelphia Coalition of Community Development Corporations, Community Legal Services, Philadelphia Legal Assistance, and the Pennsylvania Health Law Project.
I want to mention, too, that Mark certainly has been a role model to me. I won't ever try to achieve his sense of humor, but his the standards that he has set about excellence, about the importance of diversity within our and among our clients as well as our staff and our leadership, and his ability always to be thinking about how can we do better, how can we grow. He has been really somebody to look to. You can't talk about Mark Schwartz without referencing his sense of humor. And it's a sense of humor that you have to get to know and then enjoy. And I came to very much enjoy it over my career. I didn't quite get it at the beginning, but I got it over time, and it was fun to be around Mark and the hats, literally the hats that he wore.
Like Mark, Bob also wears a lot of hats, but one thing that is unanimous among their peers is their eagerness to share their successes with partners in the legal aid community. Throughout the years, both men have led with authenticity and integrity, from gracefully handling delicate situations to to adding a dose of lighthearted humor to sometimes daunting work.
One time, many years ago, Bob and I were at an event in downtown Pittsburgh, and Bob's wife was with him, and we were leaving the event together, and we walked out the doors and we were standing there, and it was absolutely pouring down rain. And I was jumping into a cab to go back to the hotel, but Bob and his wife had to walk several blocks to get to their car. So I gave them my umbrella, which was a very cheap drugstore umbrella. I did not care about it, but they needed it more than I did. So I gave them my umbrella. The next week, I was back in Harrisburg, and FedEx delivered this box. Bob had sent me back my umbrella with a big box of chocolates and a handwritten thank you note, which I thought was so sweet, and I will never forget that.
Mark has a crazy sense of humor. He introduces himself at meetings as someone else, a famous, silly person, or someone in the room, or someone who should be in the room and didn't make it. He's always there to make important work fun.
It's hard to imagine our legal aid community without Bob and Mark. They have been pillars of our community. They have been mentors to many of us, including myself. They have helped hundreds of thousands of low-income people with legal needs that otherwise would have gone unmet.
Bob and Mark have dedicated so much of their lives and efforts to make civil legal aid available for thousands of low-income and marginalized Pennsylvanians. Their knowledge of and commitment to advancing the cause of justice is an inspiration. And the impact they have made throughout the course of their careers is truly profound.
I wish them the very best, and I thank them for the system that they helped build and the amazing work that they did. Congratulations to Bob and Mark.
Congratulations.
I am so very proud of you.
Congratulations, Bob and Mark.
In honor of their remarkable careers, dedication to equal justice, and advocacy on behalf of those who have nowhere else to turn, the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network is pleased to present the Samuel W. Milkis Outstanding Leadership Award to Robert V. Racunas and Mark Schwartz.